Hey guys, Steve Wise here, president and founder of Mental Fitness LLC. And in this training, we're going to talk about tips for relationships. When I think back upon my life, I do remember some of the accomplishments, and that gives me a sense of pride. But more meaningful than that to me are the relationships that come with each phase of life. And so I think about, my friends in college, Dan and Lauren and Brady and Chris and Oliver. I think about my friends from high school. I think of Max and Shannon and Derek and Brett and Pat and everyone, Nate. And it's really, when we think about life is all about relationships. Those deep, meaningful connections we have with friends, family members, mentors, that we probably value and cherish most throughout our life. And yet, we're not taught how to be in successful relationships in high school. We're not taught how to negotiate conflict. We're not taught how to be a great team player. And that's perhaps why, divorce rates within the first 7 years, at one point were up to 67% of marriages ending in divorce within the first 7 years. And the odds of being in a happy, healthy marriage only being about, 33%. When you look at, half ending in divorce, that number is a little skewed upwards because people tend to be more successful in their second and third efforts. And then we think, but even of those who stay married, how many are actually in healthy, happy relationships? And it ends up being about maybe 3 in 10 that are actually happy and healthy, according to John Gottman. And so the question then becomes, why? Why is this statistic somewhat abysmal? It's kind of painful to hear that the world is, of all 10 relationships, maybe only 3 out of 10 are going to be happy and healthy. So the question is, why is that, and what can we do to improve it? I'm not going to steal Gottman's stuff because he's great, and so is Gary Chapman. So the 2 books that I recommend very, very highly are The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman and The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Both of those books are wonderful, and they do a world of good in helping people have happy, healthy, successful relationships. Where I would like to build upon those books as a foundation is with this: my 7 tips for making happier, healthier relationships. And with that, let's dive right into them. So, tip number 1, have the same standards. We don't often think about this in a relationship, but we should. And we need to do those checks occasionally. If I can go over to a buddy's and spend the night, so should my partner be able to do the same thing. If I can work a certain amount, then so should my partner. We want to make sure we have the same standards as much as possible. That's not to say that, each partner should have all the same roles or mutually share in all of those kind of roles in terms of household chores and things like that. But you want to make sure you have the same standards and not any type of double standard. If this is okay for me, it has to be okay for the other person. And then to come up with kind of where those, mutual standards come in. So before I even go into the rest of them, let me backtrack a step here. There are 4 main misconceptions in relationships that I should talk about. And those are: we have all the same values, that we know each other, what each other's thinking, feeling, or needs, we never hurt each other's feelings, and that relationships come easy. Every one of these is a lie and a myth. The reality is the opposite in all cases, right? We don't have the same values. So coming back to number 1, we need to figure out, how do we lovingly compromise those values that each party feels good, and one party isn't sacrificing a core value that comes with a feeling of resentment, right? So we need to figure out how to have loving compromises in terms of negotiating different value sets. We never know what each other's thinking, feeling, or needs. And we need to ask and communicate those feelings. The vast majority, if not all, relationship stress comes from misunderstanding and miscommunication. So we need to communicate clearly to each other what the person is thinking, what feeling, and needs. So then we can come to those kind of value agreements and bridge the gap. you're gonna hurt each other's feelings. Relationships, any long-term relationship is gonna come with tears and repairs. The question is, do you have the repair skills to piece back together those tears and make it even stronger than they were previously? So mantras like, when you're upset, the world stops, I listen. Things like that lead to great repair skills, because you're gonna hurt each other's feelings, albeit probably unintentionally, and you need to then have the skills to repair that. And lastly, relationships do not come easy. The honeymoon stage does not last forever. And so what we need is the ability and the skill sets to maintain our relationships for the long term. And that's where I hope some of these 7 tips come in today, to give you some of those skill sets to maintain the relationship at a high level for a long time to come, because they take work, they take investment, right? My wife is a doctor, and she studied for a long time to be a doctor, and she's a very good and very skilled doctor. I think of myself as a husband, and I want to put in the same amount of work, if not more, into my relationship and being a husband than I do in my business, right? I want to study, how do I become a better husband? How do I be a better partner, right? And so that's where books like, Gottman's book and Chapman's book really come in and really have made a huge difference in my life. And now I want to pay it forward and offer some tips I've learned along the way as well. So, diving right back into it, tip number 1, have the same standards, right? Got to make sure it's not a double standard in the relationship. Tip number 2, keep your conflict in-house. Full disclosure, just about every one of these lessons up here, I've learned the hard way. So when we think from an audience standpoint, a smart person learns from their own mistakes, a smarter person learns from the mistakes of others, the smartest persons learn from the successes of others. The goal in a lot of my training series is to help people kind of just get to that last stage first. So when people don't keep their conflict in-house, here's what happens. Say I have a conflict with my partner, and then I call my friend and I talk about that conflict with my friend. What happens to my friend's perception of my partner? It is perhaps negatively and irreparably skewed to the negative. That is not a healthy way to be in a relationship. And I know I talk about, previous steps when you're emotionally escalated, you want to retreat and you want to talk to someone. To build upon that point, you want to talk to someone with proper discretion. And when it's about a relationship issue that is sensitive, you don't want to bring that to your parents. You don't want to bring that to your close friends who are also involved with that person in your relationship. The better approach is to keep your conflict in-house. And if you need to talk with someone about it, talk with a counselor, talk with somebody who is bound by HIPAA, or talk with a pastor, somebody who is bound to keep things confidential, so that way that doesn't hurt the relationship. You want to keep your conflict in-house, so that way the whole world doesn't know your stuff, and that protects the health of the relationship. Tip 3, never stop courting, put the relationship first. Our human tendency in relationships is after the honeymoon, we tend to get complacent. And we tend to take for granted that this person is still gonna be there beside me the next day. They're not gonna leave me. And so we stop making that effort we make in the first initial maybe 6 months to a year in that honeymoon stage. My tip is to never stop courting. That you want to continuously work to make that person feel special. That you are, using those 5 love languages of quality time, gifts, physical touch, words of praise, and acts of service constantly to show that this person is number 1 in your life. You continue to go out on night dates. You continue to put them first. Not your kids first, not your parents first, not your friends first, not your job first. The relationship has to come first. And you want to make that person, feel really special and continue to court even beyond the honeymoon. And so it doesn't fall into complacency. Because if a relationship isn't growing, just like a business isn't growing, it's deteriorating. Act as if, tip 4. What this one is about is if I'm talking with a colleague about, my wife or, anybody's partner in a relationship, you want to constantly act as if that person is right there with you, right? That's what it is to have integrity, but that's also what it is to be in a healthy, respectful, long-term, happy relationship. I never want to say anything professionally or even in private context about my partner that I wouldn't say with my partner there. That is what it is to act as if. And if you are doing things that violate that role, that you're speaking poorly about your partner, trusting that he or she will not hear it, and that it's in confidence to a private party, that is not acting as if, and that is a quick script for a relationship to go south. Tip number 5, a for us mentality. Attack the problem, not each other. Many times in relationships, we make it personal. We look at a circumstance and we say, you're at fault for this. And we attack that person's character. And if you want to damage a relationship very, very quickly, do that frequently and often. If you want to help have a happy, successful relationship, attack the problem together instead of attacking the other person, right? So let's look at this problem together and attack it, not make it a personal issue of someone's, character. The second part of this tip is the for us mentality, right? If I'm doing something that maybe I'm hesitant to do, like let's say I don't like going to the opera, but my wife wants to go to the opera, and I say, well, I'm here, I did this for you, what more do you expect of me? It doesn't really count. You want to do things for one another, and not do it for you. Not do it with that obligatory, I'm doing this for you, I get credit just for being present here. You want to do it with a for us mentality and a good attitude, a good, genuine, fully present enthusiasm for it to really count. Because again, we have different values and interests, but the more I take an interest in my wife's values and hobbies and interests, the more she's going to take an interest in mine. And that's just what it is to be in a good kind of teammate relationship with someone, that it's not for you with a sense of moral obligation, but a for us. Let's do this together. Let's be fully present. Tip number 6, have fun together. Share dreams and memories together. When you're in a long-term relationship, your dreams, your goals as a couple are going to ebb and flow. You're going to support someone in their dreams at some point. They're going to support you at some point. But the goal is that you want it to be, again, our dreams, right? That we use the we language, and that you create shared memories together. You have fun together. When something, goes wrong, you get closer together. That person's your ally. You attack the problem and you get closer together. You share those dreams and memories together. And you create those memories by never stop courting. And you create those dreams with that for us mentality in which you support each other in a synergistic way throughout the course of your life together. If you're looking for a partner still and not in an active relationship, this is important to keep in mind too. You always want to find someone who is on an equal level with you, that challenges you and brings out the best in you, not someone who you feel like you need to, who isn't on your level or who doesn't bring out the best in you in some way. You want to find that person who meets the standards of what you're looking for in a reciprocal partner to bring out the best in you as well. Lastly, aim to outdo one another in honor and kindness, but without keeping score. My colleague and good friend Howard Irwin told me this, and it is the best piece of relationship advice I've ever gotten. To aim to outdo one another in honor and kindness without keeping score. So what do I mean by that? According to Adam Grant, there's 3 types of people. There's, givers, takers, and matchers. What I'm encouraging everyone to do who is in a relationship is to make a conscientious effort to be a continual and constant giver. That you are giving honor and kindness to your partner, acquiescing whenever you can, being supportive, making compromises and sacrifices whenever it feels good to do so and isn't sacrificing a core value that comes with a sense of resentment. But to aim to outdo one another in offering grace, in being kind, and trusting that will be reciprocated. Because here's the thing, if you do that enough, it will, by the law of attraction and by the law of reciprocation, be mirrored back to you. The more you do that in little small ways, the more when big things come together, that it's gonna reciprocate itself. The key is to trust that. You don't want to be a micromanaging matcher and think tit for tat, I did this for you, you do that for me. It's not how long-term happy relationships work. You have to trust that if you're gonna outdo one another in honor and kindness, and you both take that attitude, that we're both going to aim to outdo one another in honor and kindness, that we're both gonna have great repair skills when the world's upset, you stop, we stop, I listen, right? When you both take that mindset and you then offer each other grace and kindness, you attack the problem, not each other, you have the same standards, and you talk about like your values and how they can come together, and you really seek to understand where each person's value comes from, not just judge it for its right or wrongness. You keep your conflict in-house. You never stop courting. You make sure the relationship comes first, not your parents, not your kids. You know, keep the effort, keep the work coming in. You act as if that person is there with you at all times, even when they're not. You maintain that for us mentality. You attack the problem as separate from attacking the person. Have fun together, create shared dreams and memories, and you aim to outdo one another in honor and kindness. If you do all of those things, those 7 tips, I promise you will have a happier, healthier relationship, whether it's a significant other, a colleague, a coworker, a friend, or a family member. And I really hope that those are of value to you. So for that, thanks for watching.